Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Daniela. I am based in Mexico. I'm happy to be here and I hope you are as excited to be in this session as we were preparing for it. We are very happy to be here and to talk to you about how City Planning Labs is helping create data foundations to build smart, resilient, and sustainable cities. We want to take this opportunity to share our work at CPL, to share our products, our tools, our framework, but we also are very excited to hear from you. We want to hear about your ideas, your opinions, also your challenges working in your cities and in your countries, working with data. And we want to explore how our approach can help you overcome these challenges. Over the next 2 hours, we will share some of our tools and products, and we will have a panel of experts who will share also their experience implementing a spatial data infrastructure at city level. So you are very welcome. And this is our team. This is CPL team. And our team has put together a really fun and a really interactive, engaging community session for you today. We quickly want also to thank all the institutions and organizations that have supported our work these years, including the Swiss Confederation through the Indonesian Sustainable Urbanization Trust Fund, the World Bank's Korea Great Growth Trust Fund, the Global Data Innovation Fund through the World Bank Trust Fund for Statistical Capacity Building. And as we were saying before, it would be a very nice introduction to start knowing a little bit about you now that you know a little bit about us, about our team. While we maybe are waiting for other people to connect, share in the chat your name, your organization, your country, and let us know also what is your motivation for joining us and being here with us today. We have Marcel Hatting from Johannesburg, Ricardo Garcia from Mexico, and he's interested in knowing how to use data in challenging time as we have, and also Carmen Valdez from Mexico, Chris Morgan, welcome from Tanzania. And thank you so much, all the participants to be here. We also encourage you through right now and through all the session to please use the chat. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, we will record that. And of course, our team is going to follow up in the chat to answer as many questions as we can. If we can do it in this moment, of course, we will follow up later on. If you feel free to drop your email so we can easily get in touch. So thank you for joining again and for being here to let us share this work with you. As people has mentioned, now we want to see how cities can be resilient in these challenging times, and also there's passion about sharing experiences and sharing also how we can work with data governance. And that is exactly what we're going to do here in this session. We want to highlight the importance of using an ecosystem approach when working with data, and how CPL has co-developed this type of approach, which is being used in cities around the world. So we're gonna exactly discuss how these geospatial data ecosystems are key to advance to more resilient, sustainable, and smarter cities. Let me quickly walk you through the agenda for the rest of the session. So we have welcomed you, and now we will jump into an interactive activity that is going to be really fun, so stay with us. And then we're gonna have a quick overview of City Planning Labs, and most importantly of our municipal data infrastructure approach and our 4-pillar framework that you're gonna learn all about. And after that, we're gonna have a discussion in breakout rooms, so we can also have an opportunity to listen to you and to have a powerful discussion amongst ourselves to get to key messages and discussions that are going to help us understand a little bit more of the concepts that we're presenting to you today. And after that, we're going to share with you how we have operationalized our framework on the ground. And for this, we're going to showcase one innovative one data portal that we have been working with, along with case study of our innovative urban planning tools. We will close this session with a group of panelists with experts from Singapore, Johannesburg, and Mexico. There's going to be followed by a short session of Q&A, a session of Q&A. And finally, we're going to wrap up with a presentation of a cool small video that is going to summarize today's session from with a super cool doodling. So as I said before, the first thing we're going to do today is our interactive activity. For this, we're going to use Mentimeter. Maybe you have used the Mentimeter before. It's an online tool that can help us get a lot of answers from all participants. And we're going to show the answers in the same screen. So it's a little bit of interaction among us, the whole group. And to get to use the Mentimeter, you just need to go to the link that our team is going to share in the chat. Or you also can go in your phone or even in another in your browser. You can go to menti.com, and in the page that is going to open, the only thing you need to do is to write the code as you are seeing in the screen right now. The code is 3095836. And that's it. You can even use the QR to scan also the Mentimeter. So remember, please, that all questions are important. If you want to make a question, just use the chat, and our team is there also prepared to follow up on your questions. So actually, what we're going to do is super fun. And the next thing we're going to do is to jump into our interactive activity. And we're going to start thinking about something that we have learned and in our experience is happening in a lot of cities. So let's picture this. We have a lot of technology, we have a lot of innovation, we have all this abundant of technology initiatives, we have a lot of apps. We are on the top of our game working with technology. We have been there. But there's something that is happening that we are not getting evidence-driven urban planning. Despite all that technology and all those apps and innovation, we are not making informed decisions for our cities, for resilient and well-planned cities. So we want to know what is happening. So help us to think a little bit what is happening between all these resources that we have and evidence-driven urban planning. So just for a minute, think about what do you think is the missing piece between all this technology, innovation, and data and evidence-driven urban planning. So now is the moment when you go to your Mentimeter and you start getting your code maybe, or just click on the link as I explained before. And you're gonna, once you're there, you're gonna have a box. So please just write your word, one word that you think, or one word or two that you think it's the linkage, what we need to work on, or what is preventing us to get from all this technology and innovations to evidence-driven urban planning. So I'm going to give you a minute to just join the Mentimeter and start writing your questions. And now I think we can go to the Mentimeter, and we have our first. Thank you so much for your participation. This is great. So what is our missing piece between technology, innovation, data, and our goal, that it's evidence-driven urban planning? So we have something very big, that it's collaboration. That's that is getting bigger and bigger. And we have also data that is very important. We have effective policymakers. That's another one. Data is all. So that is something that we have also learned in our experience. The quality of data, of course, values. We need consensus. We're gonna talk a little bit about that as well. Cross-cutting facilitators, access to data, of course, people, integration is a good one. Bureaucracy is preventing us to get to our evidence-driven planning. Social interaction. We have also the quality of the data. I think I say that skills, that it's related to capacity, technical capacity, of course. I'm really excited to see all your responses, because this is exactly what we're going to talk to you today. So, and we have a little bit more culture of innovation. Maybe we need to foster this innovation. Funding has become like really big. Adaptive regulation. Yeah, I think policy, of course, and vision. That's a new one that we didn't have before. So we can see here, collaboration, funding, technical capacity, data are getting like really big. So for the good news right now is that we are going to talk about all these things that you have mentioned in your Mentimeter. We're gonna talk about this, and um, we're gonna um, tell you about our experience working in CPL and on how co-create solutions that builds a strong data ecosystem to foster this, to have collaboration, to have better quality data, better quantity data. And for this, I want to welcome Gayatri Singh, that is going to tell us more about our CPL's journey and the solutions that it provides. Thank you very much, Gayatri. You have the floor.
Thank you, Danny, and a very warm welcome to everybody to this session. Thank you for taking the time to join the session today. And just for preserving the bandwidth and for better voice quality, while I present, I'm going to switch off my camera, and then I'll come back on camera after that. So it's my pleasure today to talk to you about data and cities and share with you City Planning Labs Indonesia's solution for one of the toughest problems facing many cities we work in, not just in Indonesia, but globally. And this is the lack of evidence-driven planning and decision-making, which is by far one of the biggest bottlenecks to creating resilient and risk-informed cities. So have a look at these images. Most of us can relate to them. Chaotic traffic, wires everywhere, awful connectivity, bad waste and wastewater management. Over the last decade, there have been a lot of attempts to enable local governments to respond to the complaints of frustrated citizens, with the assumption that accelerated responsiveness to such live complaints will create smarter cities. A reasonable assumption, perhaps, but one that has driven and one that has driven the rise of smart city initiatives across several cities. But the question is, has this really worked? And unfortunately, what we see across the globe, and especially in Indonesia, where we've been working for quite some time, is that many smart city initiatives, despite their potential, largely focus on apps rather than evidence-driven planning and urban management. In one of the cities we work in with the Large Smart Cities Initiative, we counted over 13 citizen engagement and complaints apps, collecting citizen feedback, but none of the data was really being mined for long-term planning. Of course, we all know that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So the result is that mayors are ignoring city spatial plans, socioeconomic development plans, and instead focusing on responding to complaints received from apps, which has a whole range of implications for reinforcing the digital divide and undermining data-driven, risk-informed planning. Another bottleneck for data-driven planning in cities is data itself, especially geospatial data. Over the last few years, the World Bank and many donor organizations, multilateral and bilateral organizations, have increasingly become interested in the potential of remote sensing. City Planning Labs was in fact one of the first projects to work with European Space Agency within the World Bank to demonstrate how satellite imagery and remote sensing could be used to create quality analytics for better service delivery. In one of the cities, we created excellent terrain motion models with the help of our ESA colleagues, brilliant analysis showing land subsidence impacts on networked infrastructure beyond just the land subsidence zones, which completely shifted the perspective on planning for networked infrastructure in cities, especially where land subsidence was very serious, and also helped develop better flood risk interventions. Next, please. Unfortunately, the spatial planning agency in the city loved the analysis so much that they did not want to share the data with the public works or the disaster risk agency. The point to note here is that often there are no checks and balances, no data sharing protocols, no data custodianship agreements that mandate agencies to seamlessly share data. And especially in the absence of any integrated data platform that hosts all data in one portal and are updated periodically, there is often a result in duplication of data across different agencies and obviously a lot of inefficiency. So in our case, what this meant was that the impact of these important cutting edge analytics on boosting the resilience of the city was much, much less than expected because it stayed in with one agency. In other cities we worked in, we've sometimes encountered over 11 data portals across different agencies, but none of these really talk to each other. So they stay in fragments. Working in silos often results in duplication of data sets, as I mentioned, and of course, inefficiency, and most importantly, poor planning, which is critical for thinking about addressing risk. The end result of all this is money down the drain, which we were seeing not just in the CPL cities early on, but also in many other projects in Indonesia, and hearing from colleagues all over the world about this issue within local governments and within the World Bank. Besides the problem of data duplication and inconsistency that I mentioned, there's another problem that we see. A lot of data lives on the laptops of external consultants who have the skills, who are hired to develop the data and do the analysis, but without any accountability. In one of our cities, we did a data inventory exercise, which highlighted 12 consultants who had simply disappeared without submitting soft copies of the data to the city. One of them, in fact, took the entire GIS of the city's spatial plan and passed away, unfortunately. And essentially, the entire city's spatial plan went to his grave and nobody could track it down. Once again, money down the drain. The point here is that no matter how cutting edge our interventions, no matter how innovative data production approaches, how brilliant the technology, the bottom line is that Band-Aid solutions don't work, especially if our target is to institutionalize evidence-driven planning in cities and truly leverage the power of geospatial data to create resilient cities. In the early years of CPL, when we kept seeing the Band-Aid solutions were repeatedly not working, we decided to step back and look at globally successful models. There must be some solution. We weren't the first ones to wanting to reinvent the wheel. What would it really take to create a geodata revolution in the cities we were working in? We found extensive evidence from published literature, global case studies, that the expected benefits of geospatial data investments could be almost 3.2 times larger than the cost. And these approaches to geospatial data investments that yielded such high rate of returns did not just focus on data or analytics, and certainly not only on smart city apps. They had one and only one thing in common. And this was the fact that they treated data as infrastructure. Such an approach of data as infrastructure requires an important mindset shift, not only for those in city governments or national governments, but for partners such as World Bank's other multilateral bilateral donor agencies who support the city governments. But what do we mean by data as infrastructure? Please allow me a moment to explain this. So let's take a common example of a common type of infrastructure such as roads, and think about all the elements that enable a road to function. We can understand that roads, or any other infrastructure for that matter, are not able to operate without supporting elements. Roads need regulations that determine mutually agreed upon acceptable driving behavior. For example, don't drink and drive. Similarly, the use of data and sharing of data needs to be regulated by policies and requires a governance system as its foundation. Roads also needs workers for repairs and regular maintenance, traffic management. In the same way, data verification, updates, maintenance also requires staff with relevant educational backgrounds. In other words, the capacity of people in cities. Lastly, roads must be planned, managed, and treated as part of a system. Roads can only function as part of a road network. A single segment of a road is simply a fragment with limited benefits to its users. Much like roads, data need to exist within a system alongside other data sets to unleash the power of evidence and data-driven planning to inform our decision-making in our cities. With this understanding, we decided to move away from ad hoc band-aid approaches. And with really excellent inputs from Singapore Land Authority, City of Johannesburg, experts from Finland, Korea, Australia, Mexico, and several other global benchmarks, we developed an ecosystem approach under the framework of Municipal Spatial Data Infrastructure, or MSDI in short. This MSDI framework is operationalized under 4 pillars: institutions, people, data, and system, or IPDS in short. On top of the robust system foundation, we have developed open source, scalable urban planning and management tools, which you will hear about a little bit later in the session today. 3 cities in Indonesia with different levels of geospatial capacity, Semarang, Denpasar, and Balikpapan, became close partners in thinking about how to practically operationalize this MSDI approach in a way that would be scalable within, but also beyond Indonesia. The Ministry of Regional Planning and Development, Bappenas, is our champion at the national level, along with the National Geospatial Agency. And this operationalization of MSDI that we are presenting is not just a nice framework that we put in a report and forget about. It is the output of a collaborative, co-created process with local national governments and several other partners from different countries that I mentioned, with toolkits for each pillar that are scalable in middle and low-income countries across the world. Next, please. So while each of the IPDS, institutions, people, data, system pillars, have toolkits that are available to the cities, it is important for me here to emphasize that the operationalization of MSDI needs to be viewed as a process and not just a collection of tools or products. So as a process to initiate MSDI, and we could do an entire session on this, but let me just give you a glimpse on this. We have designed a 3-step process. First, consensus building through MSDI capacity building diagnostics, assessments that involve all key agencies. Then second, a collaborative identification of 10 opportunities. And finally, a roadmap coming out of all this consensus building and discussions for prioritization and implementation of MSDI roadmap, including, when possible, rough budget sources and a results framework to monitor progress. This process could take a couple of weeks or a couple of months, depending on the capacity of the city, but no longer than that. This process is about creating agreements at different levels and really focuses on identifying a shared understanding of how the information will flow, the right entry points for the client, What will the client be excited about across the 4 pillars of institutions, people, data, and system? And what we have done is to make it even more accessible and scalable. We've developed an MSDI manual to help implement this process. This manual presents an overview of MSDI, how to think about it, and also guides city agencies and partners